What's up, YouTube? I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how I do
Death metal editing.
for drums, especially in Studio One. I don't really see that anywhere on YouTube, specifically for this DAW. But regardless of the DAW that you use, the principles I'm about to show you guys will be universal. Essentially, all the major DAWs, at least that I know of, have these same type of functions, albeit under different names. Nevertheless, let's go ahead and get started and dive right in. Okay, so gonna show you guys my method of doing this, and that's gonna be, especially for metal, separating the kick from the top half of your drums, meaning your snare, toms, cymbals, etc. There is a way to do it together, but the way I'm about to show you guys is a much better method. In my personal opinion, I will be breaking this series up into two parts, one showing you the editing and one showing you the sample replacement side of things. So first things you guys want to do is hit your audio bend tool, which is Pro Tools equivalent of like hit markers or hit points. Cubase has it too. I've seen it. I don't know about Logic, but I'm sure they have something just as good or the same. In any case, let's go ahead and get started. So you want to create your groups. I already have a global group here, and then I also have these here, just called kick, and then these which are called drums no kick. So when I just select these two tracks, they will only be selected, and none of these other ones. However, same thing with these. If I click this, it's just the top half of the kit and no kick drum. As you can see up here, there are markers that I made for the different times that my drummer played. So, you know, he played triplets here and then went back to a normal 4/4, triplets, back to normal, triplets, back to normal, triplets, back to normal. There's a reason for that, which I will get into shortly. And let's go ahead and dive right into the kick. Now, the first one I will be doing is the kick trigger, because we did a real kick and a kick trigger. I didn't end up using the real kick, but I wanted the option there anyways if I did decide it, so we recorded it just to do it. So let's go ahead and let me move this up top and get this analyzed. So you guys are going to see some crazy shit. And, you know, when you're in Studio One, you do have the audio bend menu, which gives you standard algorithms, which I'm going to go ahead and analyze now. You don't need sensitive unless, you know, this goes notes. Let's go ahead and back into group. And basically, I use the slice function right here. You do have the option to quantize, which basically stretches and the waveform or collapses the waveform mathematically using an algorithm. I don't prefer that. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I never really heard any artifacts. I just prefer slice mode, as that's what I'm used to, and it retains the natural transient. There's no alterations to the transients in that way. I set my crossfades, in this case they're called auto fades, to 20 millisecond. There's a reason why I set it for such a large version. We'll get into that. Quantize is the time correction percentage, how much of that is being implemented onto your track. You know, I play metal, so I usually leave it pretty freaking high. Alex is a really good drummer, so he didn't need much. Some people really need the help, so, you know, you set it accordingly. However, personal tastes prefer things to be almost 100% on the grid. Almost. I still want some of that human swing feel, so I leave it quite high at 85, and then apply that algorithm, and you're going to see it get cut up. Now, however, due to the fact that there are those markers that I mentioned for the triplets, I did forget to cut up the sections necessary. So I just cut one section here, and I wonder why this didn't cut, but that's okay, no worries. And let's go ahead and apply this. Actually, you know what? Other rule of thumb that I forgot to give you guys is that you do want to go in here individually and double check all of this to see if the markers picked up everything. The threshold right here would dictate how much or how little it picks up everything. As you can see, like it's moved. So let me just do a quick flyby over this and make sure everything's good. And I will be right back. Okay, so I went ahead in detail here and double checked, and it seems that everything was triggered. Now you are seeing this here. What this is when he does the bursts on the kick drums. The reason I don't have those highlighted with trigger points is because the algorithm has a really hard time picking those up accurately, and at the end of the results anyways is going to end up being replaced. So it's far better to just do that section by hand, which I will show you in part 2. And so let's go ahead and get these first section edited. And so we're going to go back up here and we're going to hit apply. All right, now I did forget to mention that you do want to set your grid to what you are going to be editing to. So to touch upon the triplet parts that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, you want to set your grid to triplets if you're going to be editing triplets. If you were not to do that, your triplets will then become regular, just 1, 2, 3, 4 instead of triplet, triplet, triplet. And so that is a very important and key part of my workflow, is to constantly, now I have a command control, and then I can change the time of the I don't know if you can tell up here, the time of the grid by doing that way. So in any case, let's go ahead and take a look. I'm also gonna touch upon why I have the 20 milliseconds crossfades here. So they are quite large, as you can tell, but I usually eyeball it and push them to where they're about half the size, because by moving them from the right side to the left and cutting it in half, you're basically pushing the crossfade 10 milliseconds before the transient happens. So you retain all of the information from that kick drum. And let's go ahead and hear how this first section sounds. Okay, so from doing this so long, I can just visually tell when there's a bit of a boo-boo that Studio One made. So when you guys see these double crossfades like this, you guys do want to move it out of the way, usually by deleting it and then just closing the gaps and then crossfading them. That just means that there was a little bit funky. It's a computer, it's not perfect. You know, it will make mistakes. So when you guys also see stuff like this, where the transient was too far ahead, that's because the computer placed it there. Just use slip editing, which is you cut a region and you can slip within that region while the region itself does not move, to correct that issue. So there, again, let's back up here. There's two issues: the double crossfade, excuse me, which you delete that section, close the gaps, and then just recrossfade it, and then you have your note that was not corrected properly, and you just use slip editing to push it back or forward if you need to correct that issue, while being mindful of the adjacent, because like if I keep pulling this, you're going to see here that this goes out. So just be mindful of that. And let's continue. Oh, no, I think you're fine. There's another one. Highlight both of them. Crossfade again. And let's move on. Okay, so here's another section with the double crossfade. Okay, so you guys are kind of seeing a pattern here. You know, this is the most tedious, in my experience, part of engineering, and it's the least fun, but it is the absolutely essential for heavy metal to have these kinds of detail work done. You know, that's what your audience is going to expect, is a highly polished product, regardless of the genre. But other genres, you can be a little more loosey-goosey with what you're doing. What you guys are seeing me doing here is that correction that I mentioned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go through the rest of the kick on my own here, fixing anything that I see is an issue, and then I'll meet you guys on the other side for the top half of the kit. So actually we've hit a section in the kick drums where the kit are now in triplet feels. I'm going to quickly touch upon what to do in that regard. So I know that these tend to be more of the 8th note triplets, and it's going to be exactly the same thing that you saw me do earlier. 20 millisecond, 85%. You know, everything's been accounted for. The guides, which I will touch upon a little bit later, near the end. So let's go ahead and do this triplet section, but it's literally the same thing that you saw me do prior. I hit apply. I grab this, just kind of eyeball it. Actually do that again because it didn't come out right. Okay, hit apply. Eyeball it. Not working the way I wanted. Hold on 1 second, guys. I'm gonna do this fast here. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so you here. Ooh.
Oh, fuck.
So study one crashed. Not really sure what happened there, but to touch upon the triplets again. Let's just continue where we were. The same deal, exact same deal, honestly, between the two sections. It is absolutely no different. The only difference being the difference in timing, but that's okay. Don't worry. Let's go ahead and take a quick peek of Rooney. You know, I did touch on how to fix those mistakes, so they may be apparent here yet again, such as here. Not sure what the dealio was this one. So I don't think this was actually supposed to be there. Yeah, I think Alex accidentally played that a little too. He came in way too early. But that's all right. We're gonna go ahead and leave that. Let's just take a quick listen though. It is what it is. You know, this is one of the things that you guys will come across. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep moving forward here, and I'm gonna finish up the kicks on my own. I did want to touch upon the triplet parts though. You know, if I hadn't done it and changed it to the triplets, it would have been all kinds of fucked up. So that said, let me go ahead and finish these kicks up. It's really just a matter of getting the rest of the triplets and the normal timing finished. Now, before I jump cut to the top half of the kit, I do want to touch upon that. As I'm finishing sections, I am bouncing entire sections at a time. I found that's a much better method than trying to do all of it at once. You know, I have a pretty good PC, so I can still do it. Others may not. But, you know, out of my own paranoia, I tend to just do whole sections, bounce it, make sure that there's no CPU issues, and then continue on. So as I'm editing, bouncing, I'm also consolidating the tracks as I move along. So by the end of it, I have bounced the entirety of the drums. And I don't really need anything else, and they're edited, they're perfect. I can send them to anybody to mix, or I can do it myself. So I'll see you guys in a little bit with the top half. I'm gonna just finish up the kicks. Okay guys, so the kick is finished. I pretty much finished up what I needed to do for it. Oh, that crossfade's all crazy. And I bounced the tracks. So now I have one consolidated edited kick drum. And now we're gonna go ahead and do the top half of the kit. In this case, snare, toms, overheads, rooms, etc. So I'm gonna put them to the no kick group. I'm gonna just cut this up where it needs to go really quick. Here. 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 Okay. So it's the same exact principle, guys, that I did with the kick. Cut in sections, bounce in sections, adjust the grid for the proper timing of that particular part. Now there is a bit of extra in this part. You especially want to have only the snare be the guide for the rest of these tracks right here, because the snare is the main time holder. That is your metronome. That is what's gonna have the rest of the band adhere to. Kick and snare are usually the things that keep the time the best. And so I use the top snare mic because that has the most transient information that the computer can latch onto. As you can tell, the bottom is very quiet compared to the top. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look. What I did forget to do is add the hit markers to this. So just give me a second, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and just correct that really fast, and I'm gonna go ahead and continue from there. Be right back. Okay, guys, sorry about that. Just had to make sure everything was in place. Now you will be seeing things like this missing. There's no hit markers here. Those are rolls. I actually prefer to do tom fills and snare rolls such as that by hand. I found if the computer tries to do it, they do come out a little fucked up, and so I just end up doing it by hand. It may take a little bit more time, but that kind of attention to detail is what's necessary to make sure they sound good. And all else stays the same as the kick. I'm gonna go section by section, change the grid for the timing field as necessary, and all while this is grouped with one single instrument. There is only the kick separated, the rest is together. And I will also make a final note at the end of this. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit apply and just quickly show you the first section, and then I'm gonna do a jump cut where I do the rest on my own and just touch on a few key things and end the video there. So I'll see you in a little bit, guys, okay? Well, actually, give me a second. I said I'd show you guys the first section of the snare. So let's take a quick peek. So far, so good. Not really seeing any issues. Check the blast beats. Right here. know what I just noticed? For whatever reason, I didn't have the rest of the track selected, so let's just go ahead and redo it really fast. There we go, that's more like it. So if you heard it in the previous example, a lot of stuff was flamming. That's because I separated the snare was edited separate from the rest of the kit. So you heard the rooms and the overheads acting a little funky. That's exactly why. So let's take a listen again. And now that I've had it grouped all together, you shouldn't really hear that problem. See, so you really want to be mindful of that. That's just going to touch upon phase. You know, if you don't have your stuff grouped decently, you know, phase is going to get all fucking crazy, and you don't want that. But yeah, let me just quickly show you guys how I would do a snare roll. We're in 16th note grid. Snare rolls I know are 32 if I'm not mistaken. Let me just change my grid. So yeah, 32. So I would cut right, front, and then just slip edit this back as a group. If you do it this way, you can minimize it, minimize the artifacts, because if you look, I'm shifting everything back, and now I don't need to do this one because I shifted these first three, and it lines up right to the grid, and etc. And it's just a much more natural feel to snare roll than if having the computer do it. Like, you can't even hear that. So it's the same principle with toms. I would most definitely do toms exact same way. And that's pretty much the gist of how you would edit drums. You know, you would go in, set your grid to the times necessary. I would suggest you guys put yourself some markers right here, and to notify yourself when the grid changes, and then just proceed it the same way. Go through each section after its slicing has been applied. Make sure that there's no mess ups or overlaps or anything like that. So far so good here. It seems that the computer did a really good job, but that's also because Alex is such a killer player that the computer didn't need to work as hard. You know, I've done projects where the blast beats are just fucking all over the place, and you know, I have to just be upfront and just entirely recreate the performance via MIDI because it's so bad. But I mean, I am not seeing anything here that would give me any indication that there was anything bad. Just for the sake of it, I will show you one section with triplets for the snare portion. Okay, so triplets, reiterate. Remember, cut your crossfades in half if you have them set on 20 milliseconds. In Pro Tools, you don't have to do that. It does it automatically for you. And it sounds like, or it looks like, we are absolutely solid in this regard. Let's take a look at this. What's this? Tom hits. That's perfectly acceptable. Okay, guys, so I'm going to finish these up, and I'm going to continue with you guys in part 2, where I show you guys how to take a fully edited drum track and do sample replacement. So thanks for watching. Subscribe. Peace.